Roll call? I have to do the roll call.
Okay, yes, roll call.
Mrs. Backo? Mr. Bishara? Mr. Sayak?
Yes,
Mr. Clark? Mr. Lembo? Mrs. Stratton? Mrs. Stratton? Mr. Zaleski?
Here.
Mr. McEnroe?
President, I'd like to call order the special meeting of the State Board of Education, March 31st, 2009. Mr. Board Secretary, has this meeting been duly noticed in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has, Mr. McEnroe.
Everybody please stand and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everybody's on the roll call, Dr. Fano? Yeah, we got a
Okay, Mr. McEnroe, I'd like to do the consent agenda first, and we'll do the budget presentation.
Very good.
Okay, we're starting with the consent agenda, page 1, number 1, buildings and grounds. That's a building use. Any questions with section 1, buildings and grounds? With none, moving to section 2, there are some adult school stipends, an accepted donation. The C is actually a tentative budget, as you can see. The general is $75,748,601, and the local tax levy is $51,428,157. Special revenue is $2.3 million, and the debt service is $5.982 million, and the local tax is $3.571,789. Moving along. There are some purchase of plaques, a DIFAS placement. F, just so that people don't understand that, those are the books that the students get at the high school. The planners, I believe it's at the Sarah War Memorial High School. That's what every student gets with the calendar on it. G, H, I, and J are change orders. J is a credit. K and L is the Treasurer and Secretary's report. And there is a Power School turnkey trainer workshop fee. Any questions with section 2?
I have a question.
Mrs. Beck.
Two of them are not necessary questions. On the budget, 2 issues that if you could address. One with the board is I know everybody received it, the deficit with the debt service, just so that I just want to comfort level that everybody's okay with where we're going. If you could just go over that.
Due to the drop-off in the banking industry, and right now we're experiencing far less interest earnings in the debt service. Right now we may end up at a $190,000 deficit, and my recommendation is you wait for the subsequent year of 2010-11 to fund it when you know the exact number. Spoken to the auditors about it, and they said that's the viable way to do it. We will probably get an audit recommendation, but I'm okay with that due to the fact of the other lost revenues that we've experienced already in this budget process.
And if interest comes in for this coming year higher than expected, that would work off that.
Exactly. You then have a full year to work off of, but I can tell you, I don't anticipate much because the cash flow is drastically down on the project and the interest rates are
Down as well.
Sign of the times.
The other question is, I know the pension rules came out after we did the initial budget. Can you just explain them and make sure that everybody's on board with that?
First problem we have is that I have a very diligent office. Our payment has already been made before the pension rules came out, so we've already paid our full cost for the year. But basically there was a deferral option. The deferral would mean that we pay interest on your portion of the deferral. But the board has budgeted for it. As I said, my department is very diligent. The payment has already gone out before the due date. And it really wouldn't have been a recommendation to defer something that you budgeted already. And the deferral would have been about $270,000, which my understanding is you would have paid interest until you paid it. So why pay for something that you already have covered?
Yeah, when you pay that interest, where does the interest go?
I have no idea. I'm assuming it would go to the State Department.
And they would keep it.
It's like 8% interest to it.
I don't know.
So everyone's okay with deferring the payment and
Not
not include,
Not
no,
deferring, not deferring.
deferring the debt
The debt
payment
payment.
and not including pension funds.
Everybody's turned out? That's good practice, to pay attention when it's due.
Yeah. Are you gonna go through these change orders?
What I'll do is go through them. Item number G is due to the requirements of the building inspection. Our initial allowance for testing has been absorbed, and there is additional testing that has to be done on a daily basis. Right now, the testing company is here 8 hours a day, every day, as walls are being built, so that was never anticipated in the original specification.
Who are they testing? Core samples and all those types of things?
Yes, they take samples of the core, cement core, they do 7, 14, 30-day tests, things of that nature, but the requirement has been that they're here every day. Item number H is the same problem we experienced in the B wing. There is basically a 2-inch gap between the first floor and second floor at the window walls. So you have to put fire stopping in there to ensure that the fire does not penetrate through the floor from one floor to the other in case there is a fire. Item number I, in the music suite, we have specialty, they're called Wenger rooms. They're specialty soundproof rooms that basically do not come with floors. And the current concrete floor will not suffice, so we put in the VCP top floor so that there is a floor in these rooms also. I'm assuming that at some point in time the thought process was they came with the floor, but they do not.
Wait, what's in the cover for?
These specialty practice rooms, I believe there's 3 or 4 of them, and Dennis, six of them, that don't have floors. They're in the room, but they won't have a floor under them because the current design didn't call for the top floor to go underneath them. So this is to include that area, so they have a
I
floor.
think we knew that when we stood in those a couple of years ago at the convention down there. That was a discussion.
Yeah, but apparently.
These are self-contained that are being placed in the existing.
Right, but there is no floor.
So we need to put a floor in.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Sound.
And item number J is a change order from reconfiguring the current computer labs in the A wing. It's a credit back with less work involved.
Any other questions, Mr. McEnroe? Yes, Mr. DeAndrea, year to date, what's a rough amount of change orders that we paid out so far?
I'm going to definitely say probably close in the neighborhood, maybe close to $1 million. But don't hold me, I'm going off the top. Because we've taken a lot of credits that have offset it, so maybe 750 to $1 million. I would have to look at all the change orders to give you a complete analysis.
Okay, he said year to date, or is that project to date?
I'm talking project. I wouldn't know the exact.
I'm sorry.
But I assume he meant project.
Talk about the field and everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you're incorporating the field, that's, a whole lot.
I have another question. The adult school, I see we have someone making $28 and somebody up to $800. How could we be paying someone $28 for a class?
It's
You know how
driven by
this works?
I have no idea.
You have no idea.
It's driven by enrollment.
It's driven by enrollment. Yeah, most of your courses are driven by the enrollment.
My assumption is they're running that literally for nothing.
For nothing.
And the person who makes the Zoom classes, there's a lot of people that take that.
If held classes for one person, one student.
Yeah. Okay, with no other questions in section 2, moving to 3, unpaid medical leave, and adjustment and substitutes for non-certified personnel. Any questions on page 4, section 3? With none, moving to personnel certified. I would like to make comment about A. I worked with Mr. Zinzi. We're going to miss him. He was a good guy, and I want to wish him a lot of good luck, health, and happiness in his retirement. He's put in over, I think, about 30 years in Sayreville as a middle school science teacher. B is professional days. C are new staff, replacement teachers, and D are substitutes. Any questions with personnel certified? With none, moving to number 5, that is policy, no report. 6, curriculum is the calendar. B are the promotion ceremony for the middle school, high school graduation, last day for students, last day for teachers. Most likely the middle school graduation will start at approximately 6 o'clock, and the high school, since it's a Friday, will start a little bit earlier, most likely at around 5:30. Any, yes?
On the graduation, is the high school going to be all prim and proper and ready to go for that?
We're in the discussion stages of that right now. We're not even waiting for that. It's baseball season. So we've been getting all over the contractors to level out the dirt and clear all this stuff out of there. And they're saying that during the spring break, a lot of this stuff will sort of dissipate because they're going to get rid of a lot of it. They're going to install a lot of it. And you're exactly right. We're very concerned about it. There will be, obviously there will be stuff around, but we're going to make sure it's clean as possible.
We're going to do our best to make sure that the site is accessible and clean as best as possible.
Well, the reason I ask that very large hall in town suggests that if you're not ready, they'd be willing to sit down with us and discuss having it held at that venue indoors.
How many people can it hold?
3,500.
It's in town?
I can discuss it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Just we'll talk about it tomorrow. Give me, I'll speak to him. I know what you're talking about.
Mr. Brown told me it's not going to rain.
It rains all the time.
No, just during my speech. Any questions on section 6?
I have a calendar question.
Yes.
There's 3 half-days PLC meetings. Is this
I'm
something?
sorry, PLC, yes. This is the professional learning communities, I'm sorry. We're mandated by the state of New Jersey to start implementing learning communities, and it is an initiative that the state is pushing forward. And we have to make time in the schedule to be able to meet a certain amount of times per year. And we decided, originally we were going to do 5, and we cut that down to 3. And there's also time during the present calendar that teachers will meet after school as well.
Is there any reason they're all on Mondays?
That's faculty days, faculty meeting days.
Oh, okay.
So we try to keep it, with their faculty meetings. And you will hear a lot more about professional learning communities. It is a big thing sweeping the country, really, and I think it's a very good idea. I'm sorry I put PLC, but we were supposed to put what the acronym stood for, but that's the PLC.
No, you did put what it stood for. I just didn't know what it was.
Oh,
You
okay.
put what the letters stood for. I just know what it was.
Any other questions with section 6? With none, moving to 7, co-curricular. Some extracurricular activities for Eisenhower and Truman. Any questions in section 7? With none, moving to 8, there's no report. That concludes my report. Before you go to the public or any questions, we'd like to, Mr. DeAndrea and myself, any board member would like to do the presentation, which is part of the consent agenda at this particular time. Okay. The public has a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Looks something like this, 6 slides.
What you also have in your packet. Sam, you're going to move it from there? Who's taking it? You're taking care of it, Sam? All right. You want me to do it, Sam? She's holding it. Yep, we don't trust her. She's holding it.
All right, what we're going to quickly go through is we'll spend about 10 or 15 minutes and go through it. This is the 09-10 budget, and we'd like to go through it relatively quick if anybody has any questions. There will also be a newsletter that will be out within the near future. Every year we go through the input, how we put the budget together. We sit with the administration, we sit with the staff, we sit with the public, we sit with the Board of Education. This year, I believe, we put in about 25 hours with the Finance Committee, and subsequently, we met with every single department, every single principal, and the staff also had some input into it. This is the fourth meeting we've had in regard to the budget. We started on January 8th, February 5th, the 17th, and now on to the 31st, which is the public hearing. We also have many other PTO meetings that are set up. We have a community presentation set up for, I believe it is April 15th, and it's at the UES, and that's right before candidates night as well. So that will be at 6:30 at the SUES. Reasons for the increase, and mandated special education costs, which continue to rise. A lot of the private schools that we send some of our youngsters to, private school tuition can go as high as 10-15% above what we paid last year. Even though we're bringing a lot of youngsters back, we still have a number of children that are still in these facilities. I don't need to tell you, utilities in January and February are going through the roof. And we know just from your own home. The next one. And obviously, underfunded state and federal mandates related to special education and Title I programs. We continually get hit with all types of mandated programs. Just the PLC that I just talked about, professional learning community, that is an unfunded mandate. We, as a result, have to provide all the staff development to the teachers and to the administration, and of course, salaries and benefits are usually, and as you'll see with the appropriation, you'll see a lot of the fixed costs. Major things that we consider, it's always technology and maintenance, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Capital projects is also a big one. Educational enhancements. We continue to deal with a lot of curriculum-based reading series like in 180. We also have Passkey, Study Island, and in middle school and high school we have an achievement program and an LLD as self-contained programs throughout the district. So we have a lot of special education programs. We also have many tutorial programs, and that is one of the reasons why I'd like to mention this, and I'd like to congratulate all the teachers that really work with the program. We are one of 5 districts in the county to pass every level of what is called AYP, Annual Yearly Progress. And one of the reasons we do that is because we have a tremendous amount of tutorial programs for students before and after school, as well as we have a lot of summer learning programs as well for these youngsters. And we also have a really excellent program that's run by Nina Olber, which is our enrichment program that has now been expanded. I believe it's from grade 6 now. So we have a very much expanded summer program. These are major appropriations still in the budget. This is almost $1 million worth of an appropriation. All-day kindergarten for elementary, all-day kindergarten and courtesy busing for elementary students. All-day kindergarten, we're talking about 18 different classrooms that are affected by that throughout the district. Other educational enhancements. We now have a reading series that is brand new. It's in its, I believe it's in its next year will be its 3rd year. We started with the K-3, we moved up to 4-5, and next year we're moving to 6. That new program is costing us $436,000. State-of-the-art program. These are some of the great things that people say about this reading series. It is fully aligned to the state's core curriculum content standards and FAPE requirements. It reflects current confirmed research and prioritizes and sequences essential reading and language arts skills and strategies into a clear, organized model for instruction. It is also very multimedia. People can get into it through the internet. Students and parents have access from at home to actually get involved with the reading series through the internet. What teachers say, materials are diverse and represent people of all ethnicities, differentiated instruction materials meet all levels of learners. Here's our capital projects. I believe last year we did about $1.6 million. This year we're up to $2.2 million. We're totally replacing the olive roof. We're finally finishing the last stages of Wilson Schools, the HVAC, which the upgrades is $1.5 million. And we're going to resurface the track, not completely, but we're going to resurface it, which is another $75,000. The total capital projects is $2.225 million. Maintenance projects, we really put a lot of things on hold. We're trying to fix a lot of things internally. As you can see, basically the gym floors at the high school, middle school, Eisenhower, Wilson, and all totaling a total of 40 grand. Staffing and instruction, we tried to keep that to a minimum. As you can see, the reading grade 6 is going to cost us approximately $105,000. That's to add the last stage of the reading series. The supplies for K-5 is approximately $151,000 and change, and we are bringing more students back in the special education program, which will cost us about $84,000 approximately for 2 teachers and $94,000 for 4 paraprofessionals, which is a total of $434,000. You may say, why are you spending $84,000 and $94,000? The reason we're doing that is that we're saving that money on tuition. It is much, much more cost effective, and the state and the federal government says we have to bring these youngsters back. We are mandated to do that. What will this cost? Approximately $105 on a house that is worth approximately $143. And this is just a quick synopsis of where we sit as far as financially. The state per pupil cost is $12,776. Our cost is $9,700 and change. If you look at that, we're $3,000 approximately below the state average. And if you do simple math and you multiply that by 6,000 children, you're talking about $18 million below the state average. There are certain school districts in the state of New Jersey that spend $18,000 a child. This is our history of where we went out the last 5 years. In 06, 07, it was 199. This year, it's about 105. And just so that you know, we are not at cap. Cap would bring us up to about $131. We are approximately 3.17% of our tax rate from last year above. The average, okay, if you break it down, is 29 cents per day, a little over $2 per week, and so on and so forth. And if you don't vote, you are allowing others to make decisions that will affect our children's future. Your vote, their future. And quickly, I want to show a couple of things. This is just a quick staff and student update. We increased approximately 40 or so students from last year, so it's relatively negligible. And we have almost 5,900 students and 785 staff. This gives you an idea of student and administrator ratio. The state is approximately 262 to 1. We are far above that. And that's right from the report card. And you can see the difference. In the high school, it's 179 to 1. And we're at 412. So we are far above that average. Good. And the same thing with the number of students to administrators. Their goal is far above the state average. The number of faculty to administrators, Sarah, once again, class sizes are much larger than the state average. This gives you a quick snapshot of the cost per pupil. This is the per pupil expenditure for 07-08, and you can see it breaks it down into instruction. We're approximately 80% of what the state pays out for instruction, all the way down to, you can see our operation and maintenance. You can see we're only 63.5, we're only spending 988. Administrative costs, we're spending about 78% of what the state pays. We're a little bit over 1,000, the state's paying approximately $1,326, which is approximately $293 more than we do. And then again, this just gives you a little bit of an idea of our district factor group as far as this year's spending guide. For 3,500 students or more, we are this year 4th lowest in PPE as per pupil expenditure for 2008-09. 5%, Sarah will receive a 5% increase in state aid, just about 5%, about 4.8%, 4.9%. And our average cost per pupil is approximately $97.31, and has consistently been below the state average, and we're also below what is called the adequacy level. Just a quick snapshot of revenue. It is self-explanatory. Our revenue has gone up 4.22. you can see we're spending more in fund balance, over 24%. We spent 1.6 last year. We're going to take $2 million this year, which is a 24% increase. Percent of the budget is 2.64 of our total revenue stream. Look at state aid. State aid went up approximately 4.9. That's about 29% of our budget. And the local tax levy went up approximately 3.17 or 3.2, and that's about 68%. And see, it kind of breaks it down and gives you an idea of where we're at and how much money we get from government. You know, depending if we were a special need district, that state aid level could be as high as 95%, as high as 90. We fall into a suburban category, and unfortunately, we don't get that as much state aid as other districts. These are the appropriations split up by salary. And just look at the top two lines. Between salaries and benefits, that is approximately 73% of our budget. If you kick in tuition, which we have very little control over, that's about 79%. Transportation, which is part of it, that's 85%. 85% of our budget and utilities, about 86, 87% are fixed costs. There's not a whole lot we can do with that. And as you can see, the percent increase and the percent of the budget is all broken down for you. And salaries, obviously, is a very large part of the budget and benefits. So that gives you a quick synopsis of what the revenues and the appropriations are. Okay. The vote is April 21st. It's from 12 noon to 9 o'clock. What? You like to be close? Thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. McEnroe.
I just find to open up to the public for anything that's on the agenda or anything short of budget presentations. Be mindful that we will open it up again to the public for any business that may come before the board. If anyone would like to come up on any agenda items, Mr. Gill, come.
Cummins, 22 Smith Street. I know this is on.
Yes.
Okay. I noticed the increase in the appropriation comparison in salaries. I mean, 1.some million increase. Is there an increase in staff compared to?
That's a good question. There is no increase in staff. The only increase is what you saw, and that's in special education, and that'll offset tuition cost.
That offsets tuition. Now, so there's no increase in staff whatsoever then, from this year?
The only,
from last year?
correct. The only increase that there is going to be 2 teachers in special education that will then we bring some students back from tuitioned out districts and paraprofessionals. That is it, and there's for new staff.
I also see an increase in transportation. Why would that be, especially since we cut out courtesy busing?
We have to go out on a yearly basis to renew contracts. The state comes out with a maximum number to renew at. I believe this year they said that you can renew at 2.89%. Not all contractors are willing to renew at the state. So you have to go out and negotiate with the contractors or rebid them. And generally, we've been experiencing higher rates than what they've been out in the past. So although courtesy buses have been eliminated, you have to renew contracts on a yearly basis.
I understand utilities have gone up. Maintenance and facilities, now, that decreased? Could you explain that? I mean, that went down?
Again, the board's focus was to do major capital projects, and we're not doing as many smaller projects as we've done this year in this year's budget. So it's a comparison from one year to the other. This year's budget had many smaller projects that we've been doing in the buildings, where next year the focus was on major capital projects.
Well, no offense, and I don't mean to come up here to preach, but I'm extremely disappointed in another increase for taxes for the people of Saraville. I pick up the newspapers, I look at Old Bridge, no increase. East Brunswick, a cut back to $40. I have the article right here. And these are the surrounding districts with more pupils. And I understand the facilities need to be kept up because what good is it? We won't have a school. And I understand that, the roofs, the boilers, and everything else. But not once did I hear, and coming to all these meetings, that you're looking to cut, freeze salaries, even cutting. Your employees are your largest part of the budget, along with benefits. And all we do, for the last few years that I'm coming, is just add. The people cannot afford it. We're in a huge economic crisis. People are losing their homes. People are losing their jobs. They don't have jobs to pay for this. And this is like nothing. Oh, what's 29 cents? What's this? What's, a little bit extra per day? You add that per week. It's a gallon of milk for some of these young families. I said this to the council also, and I was very, very annoyed. I have a person that I go to. In fact, she's my beautician. She lives in Cerebral. She has 3 children. Her husband has a very good job with Verizon, and he does catering on the side. She's a beautician. She said to me, I get from the bank, my increase in my escrow is because of the raise of taxes. She says she was assessed more than $100 a month. She says, where am I going to get this from? She says, I guess I have to go get a second job. I mean, this is basically, I know it was a blue-collar community. We had the advantage of having a zero tax base for years because we had all the industry. Now, because it is white-collar, and even speaking to white-collars and my neighbors, they can't afford it. I'll just give you one example. One of my friends' taxes are over $9,000. The house is not enormous. My mother-in-law built a home in Spring Lake, 2 blocks from the ocean. My brother-in-law lives there now. Their taxes is only $200 more than this person in Cerebral, and it's a larger home, 2 blocks from the ocean. In Spring Lake, they raise their own flowers. It's a beautiful community. Fine. Something's wrong with this whole picture, and I'm sick and tired of comparisons with the rest of the state. The state is in trouble itself with education. High salaries, no offense, Dr. Alfano, for superintendents. How many districts do we have? There's only 500 and some communities in the state. We have 600 and some superintendents and whatever, school districts. Something's got to change. Something's got to give. I feel for these people. I'm on a fixed income. And where do I just pull? Oh, and my house is assessed at a lot more, so I'm facing like a $350 increase for education. Not saying what I'm going to get from downtown, too. I'm sorry. I never heard anybody say we have to bite the bullet, we have to freeze anything, we have to cut staff. Nothing. I am extremely, extremely disappointed in the administration and the board with this budget.
I'd like to just put my 2 cents in, and I don't disagree with anything Mrs. Gil-Cummins had said. Certainly, I think one thing about the Board of Education, more residents are stable, and we all pay taxes, and I know, because I have this conversation with my 77-year-old mother all the time. I may not be on fixed income, but I'm raising 3 children, 2 in college, 1 will start in September, and I understand. On the other hand, you talk about comparisons, and you mentioned East Brunswick, so you're comparing us to East Brunswick. And I had a conversation on Saturday with a member of the Board of Education in East Brunswick, and I wish we were in their condition. They spend $3,001 more per student than we do, and always have. So you're looking at a budget that's almost double what we have. The comparative spending guide, now everything Ms. Skillcommon said about the tax increases, we all had these conversations among the board and our various committees when we're trying to formulate a budget. I could have easily come back with a zero increase budget. I could not do any capital improvements. I could let go 30 staff members if I wanted to do that. And maybe I could be the hero. But what do I do next year? If we think this economic condition is going to be any better next year, what do I cut next year? Those are the things I have to think about. I can't just look at 1 year at a time. I have to look at what's next year and the year behind that. When I look at the comparative spending guide, and I have to use that because I have to know what is going on in the state. Of 104 school districts, the size of Sable, and that is 3,501 students or greater, how the state categorizes us, we're the fourth lowest in what we spend. What that means is there's 100 school districts ahead of us that are spending more, some spending well above the state average. My goal is not to be the number one lowest. Because what has happened, and I've been in education for some time, and I've been to other states, I've been to other countries, when you start decaying your school district by not funding the basic things, you start to look around your town, your neighbors start to look different, and things start to happen, because when the school district goes, there goes your town. And we're all in this together, and I understand what you're saying. I'm not happy to say, look, we got a $105 tax increase. I'm well aware what the other side of the town is doing. But if I don't fix this infrastructure this year, and unlike Oak Ridge, and I had this conversation with the board president of Oak Ridge, is that we've made this conscious decision to put plus $2 million into our infrastructure. Because if we don't do that now, and then the borough can attest to this, you're going to pay a hell of a lot more for it next year. And then look like idiots saying, you morons, why did you let this stuff dilapidate? Now it's going to cost you twice as much. All these conversations and all the things you had at your dinner table with your spouses, and what are those 9 morons doing, we've had amongst ourselves. And we have to make this call. Are we going to raise taxes that we think is reasonable, even though we understand the economic times? We understand that. But if we don't fund it, then we're going to fund it sooner or later. If we delay sending money to our pension fund, it's going to catch up with us. If we give back all the surplus back to the public, well, ask the borough council what a great idea that was. We have all these, we understand this. We're not wasting money. We're the fourth lowest in the district. And not only in spending, but we're even lower when it comes to the number of administrators we have. I go to Oak Ridge and Troll Rock out here an administrator. That's not the case here in Sable. Sable's always been that way. When you look at taxes, I put it in perspective. Where else am I going to live in Middlesex County and pay the taxes I'm paying here in Sable? We're the 7th lowest of the 25 municipalities and get the amenities I have here in Sable. And there's a lot of damn good things about Sable. I educated 3 children here, damn good school district. We got an honest police department. We got good services. I like Kennedy Park. I like the dog park. I like the horse trails. All that stuff is here. Are we really paying a lot compared to other municipalities in this town? And that's the things I think about when we come up with these budgets. I'm not happy to tell you this. I'm not happy to be the guy in the center seat to take the brunt of this, but this is the reality. We want to educate our kids or not. Education costs a lot of money, but ignorance costs a hell of a lot more. And I don't want to go down that path. And that's where we derive where we came from.
I have a question about special ed.
Come on up to the microphone, Ms. Cook. Come on.
And I was here when they cut the budget by, I think you were cut by almost $500,000, correct? Now you said we're transferring children in. When they open that county school, will we see a drop in our costs for special ed?
No. No.
And how much did we take out of the special ed budget when we were processing this? $500,000. We took out our own special ed budget. And that may come back and bite us. Because any given day, we can get a family coming here with a special need child or 2 special need children, and now we have a problem on what we're going to do with this. This is something that's always been something I talked about. I've been labeled anti-special ed simply because I talk about it. And remember, I'm the only one, and I don't know if there's
I don't
anyone
mean to be anti-special ed. I mean, a lot of it is state mandated to us also.
But, Ms. Skillcommon, I can send my kid to Cornell cheaper than I can send a kid outside the district to special ed. I'm one of the board members that went one summer and went and visited one of these schools. They're for-profit schools. Unless the governor states to the schools, hey, you need to cap the cost. It costs no more than this to send a child there. That doesn't happen. We're going to keep paying it, and we keep paying it, and we keep paying it. Because the laws are...
It needs an investigation.
Absolutely.
And we have assembly and senators probably looking into it. I'm sorry, Mr.
He's saying that's why we're trying to bring the kids back into the district.
The other thing is constantly I see coming to all the board meetings, all the hiring of paraprofessionals. Now, these are non-certified people, but so many per student. Is that a law that you have to have? And I spoke to a few teachers, and they said, oh my goodness, I don't know if it's a state law or what, but these teachers disagree because they said they're tripping over their paraprofessionals, and some of them just take them to the bathroom. And I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I mean, believe it or not, I talk to a lot of people and know a lot of people. And I just feel bad, and I'll go, well, every time I pick up the agenda, we're hiring more and more paraprofessionals.
Well, if I could speak to a couple of issues you brought up. The state does mandate how many paraprofessionals must be assigned to a class that goes over a certain number. So, for instance, in a resource setting, once you exceed a certain number, you have to put a paraprofessional in there. In any of the specialty classes that we have, once those numbers get to a certain level, you have to put a paraprofessional in there. Some kids have them in their IEPs to have a one-to-one. You talked about taking a kid to the bathroom. Depending on the child's needs, there may be a one-to-one in the IEP. And I know it seems like an explosive number, but as we bring kids back to the district, and we look to save money on the tuition, because Mr. McEnone is right, you can send a kid to Cornell or any other Ivy school for some of these tuitions. And we are looking to bring them back, but we need to have the supports here so that we can do that. And that means other expenses. You save one place, but you have to put your money somewhere else. And that's why the paraprofessional numbers do seem large.
So apparently, if our hands are tied by the state, either where we take them
More ways than
or
one.
That's true.
And federal as well.
and federal, well, maybe we should get some of this stimulus money to help and just appropriate it only for.
You can talk to some of your contacts, we'd appreciate it.
I don't have any more contacts. I'm non-political, and I don't want to be political anymore.
Thank you for your input, as always, Ms. Cook. Does anyone else like to speak or any questions about the budget? Yes, ma'am. Please come up, state your name. If you don't want to be videotaped, we'll cut it out.
I would prefer not to.
Okay, can you,
Leave the sound on, please.
It's that time of year again. Time for the board to defend and justify its budget and minimize its impact on taxpayers. Kind of reminds me of an old song. You were probably old too young to remember it, but I never forgot it. It seems to me I've heard that song before. It's from an old familiar score. I know it well, that melody. Just a few pennies more to pay. Only an average school tax increase of $105 on an assessed valuation of $143.8. Only up 3.2%. Only an increase of $1.6 million. Isn't there one board member here who has the courage, might I say guts, to vote no and say enough is enough? As Barbara said, Old Bridges has done it. South River, small South River did it, second year in a row. And they expect to hire 9 new teachers. Other municipalities do it. Why can't you do it? Maybe the people have not noticed, but Barbara mentioned these are tough times. These are lean times. They're bare bone times. Or are we playing the game, follow the leader? I mean our national leader. He has offered the voters a deadly stimulus package, and you have followed suit by prescribing bitter medicine for the struggling masses of Fairfield. A lethal dose of school taxes. Signs will soon be planted on borough lawns. We support our public schools. We don't need signs to tell us that. We have only to look at our tax bills. And I challenge every single taxpayer here and otherwise to see what a gargantuan extent we do support our public schools. I happen to own a very small home. Some might even call it a cottage compared to the massive, sprawling 3-car garage homes owned by some residents. My tax bill includes school taxes, exceeding $4,300 a year. A generous contribution to the public school system, I might say, considering I'm unmarried, I'm not a parent, I don't avail myself of the public school system. Who says charity doesn't begin at home? When I retired in 1998, I looked over my assets and decided, be no problem, piece of cake. 10 years later, I am faced with the grim reality that my piece of cake is now just a stale pile of crumbs. Parents sending their children to private schools are victims of double jeopardy. They have to pay tuition to a private school as well as schools. By relying on an additional 15% in state aid, as I read in the paper, you sort of counted your chickens before they hatched. Wouldn't it have been better if you had planned for less and received more? Lower expectations should begin at the bargaining table when you negotiate school staff contracts. Because you are sometimes afraid to lose current staff, you play Santa Claus with taxpayer money, for fear that they may be lost to other schools, other districts. Another national theme: spend more money on education. Our new president loves education and he plans to tax us for it. Sometimes there's a theory that money does not breed smarter students, rogue scholars. Perhaps psychologists haven't gotten to the chapter in the book which professes that the uneducatable, I'm not sure it's a word like that, if not I made it up, can't be educated. Students achieve only as they desire to achieve. Students reach high goals only as they set high goals. Students expend maximum effort because high effort spells success. It's not about money or fancy fixtures. Mr. DeAndrea warns that there may be strings attached to the stimulus money, that you may have to embark on early childhood or professional development, a fancy name for another waste of taxpayer money. Mr. Clark tells the Suburban that the board wants to be sure that the federal stimulus funds do not negatively affect its state aid, and warns that the state may be affected by the economy. I'm sure they are, they're already affected. These facts should have been, if not anticipated, at least considered when you prepared the budget. Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Carla Sutherland, seems to actually believe that the stimulus package will create jobs. This is the biggest joke perpetrated on the American public, which seems to be drugged with all the unachievable or pre-election promises. I've got a lot of respect for Phyllis Basto. I've seen her in action at the council here, and I also have a lot of respect for the Finance Committee. Preparing the budget is not an easy task. However, not cutting staff should not be its primary goal, nor saving jobs heralded as a major accomplishment. The board's chief objective should be protecting the taxpayer from excessive tax levies. The board just doesn't get it. The council doesn't get it. You can't expect to draw water if the well is dry. And heaven knows the taxpayer wells are dry. Board member Curtis Clark further tells the Suburban that the Finance Committee has made some very difficult decisions. We always hear that, these very, very difficult decisions. But it has not made the most difficult decision of all. That there will be no tax increase, not 1 cent, not 10,500 cents, in fact, no cents at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bishop.
I'm on the Finance Committee along with Mrs. Batko and Mr. Selesky. I've lived in this town all my life. I was born in South End by the hospital in 49. I'm on Buildings and Grounds, all right? We put a little over $2 million, and since I've been on this Finance Committee, I've looked at our infrastructure. You'll see that it's just $2.2 million. If you go to the buildings in this school, and I've made this statement many a time here, what's going to happen if we don't put the money into our buildings and repair. We're going to have classrooms out on the front lawn at all our schools. Wilson, as an example, it's one of the oldest schools in our system. We've had problems with heating systems. That's where 1.5 million is going to go. Touring the buildings here in this district, we went to all of the schools. You know, the middle school needs a roof on its library. It's falling apart. We're going to do a Band-Aid patch this year to get us through. Arlett, if you go into Arlett, into the old section, that roof is 50 years old. That's how long Arlett's, actually it's going to be 51 years old. It's dilapidated. It has to be replaced. I pay taxes just like you do. I'm on a fixed income in this town also, okay? Do I like it? No. I don't like what's going on downtown either, because they're going to come and hammer us with about 7 or an 8% increase. I looked at when I was with Mrs. Batko, Mr. Zaleski on his budget this year. I tried to prioritize what we would need to get us back. As you're well aware of, I think in the last 20-some years, 3 or 4 budgets have passed, all right? The first thing that they go after is improvements or capital projects that have to be done. That's why the system that we're in right now, we're trying to plan ahead, eventually to the point that we won't have to be putting high dollars into rebuilding schools. You know, it's come to the point, it's been mentioned, why don't we combine all of our improvements, which total this year somewhere around $5.1 million, into a referendum? I don't want to have the taxpayers with another referendum paying a bill over 30 years. I think, and the smart thing is, I've used this analysis and my board members can verify it. If your roof leaks, do you go out and buy a new car? No. You fix the roof first. If your heater goes in your house, do you go out and you buy a new color TV and a stereo system? No. You fix your heater. And that was my intent on being on a finance committee, of trying to get the projects in this district that have fallen through the cracks and fallen apart fixed. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody else from the public like to speak? If not, I'll close this portion of the public. Be mindful, I will open up again for any business may come before the board, and I'll take a motion to accept the superintendent's agenda. So, I got a motion?
Just one comment. Actually, it pertains to the budget. I spoke to Mr. Green and Ms. Sarkowitz over the weekend, and they had requested that it would be nice if the Borough Council could get a tour of the facilities affected by the capital improvements, since as members of the Borough Council and the board's liaison, or the council's liaison to the board, they're getting questions about what types of improvements that we're enacting. I mentioned it to Dr. Alfano, and he's going to be setting something up through the mayor's office, so that they'll have an opportunity to see what type of improvements we're doing.
I have a motion and a second, and I need a roll call.
Apologize, he did not get the second. Mrs. Backer.
Yes.
Mr. Machado.
Yes.
Mr. Sire.
Yes.
Mr. Clark. Yes. Mr. Lemko.
Yes.
Mrs. Stratton.
Yes.
Mrs. Pratt.
Yes.
Mr. Zaleski.
Yes.
Mr. McNamara.
Yes. On the background information, Mrs. Backo is spearheading, I call it a movement, up to the county freeholder meeting. I think it's Thursday. Wednesday was April 1st, would have been better. To go to the county to appeal, I will be speaking on behalf of the Board of Education to remove our polling booths from our public schools and to put them in other public buildings. Any information you want to give us as far as where we're mustering, what time we're leaving?
I did send out an email to everyone who's responded to me, and I asked them to forward it to their PTO members with directions, the time. The address is 75 Bayard Street. The meeting starts at 7 o'clock. They conduct their business similarly to the way we do. Their agenda will go first, and then the public portion will be later. Their meetings usually are not that long, but of course they can predict. You know, you never know how much public will be there. I've encouraged anyone who wishes to speak to please do so. Mrs. Baumann has graciously agreed to attend to speak on behalf of the principals. I've heard from every member up here except one. Most of us will be there. I know there's a couple of PTO presidents that have committed to going, and one who couldn't go asked if a prepared statement, but anyone that wants to go, please come. The more people for support, the better, and if you wish to speak, you should. I mean, I think we have a PTO representative, a board representative, a principal representative, so, as well, I'd like to, as long as we cover all bases, but anyone else who wishes to speak, I would appreciate it.
We will not fail. Right, Ms. Beck?
Because if this doesn't work, we're going to Trenton, right?
Any other background information or discussion?
I have a question, my monthly question. Architectural paperwork for phase 1 of the building, is it all into Borough Hall yet?
No.
No. Do we have any plans of getting this done and opening in September?
I can tell you it's brought up at every meeting that we attend, and certain contractors have still not completed the submission of their paperwork.
I think maybe the committee might want to get on this so that we have a building to open in September.
I think
There is an issue.
this isn't a design building, no, this is the D wing.
This is a D wing, it's nothing related to the B wing open.
And we won't
There
Right,
are
but we
concerns-
don't have the paperwork yet for the first phase in.
Correct, and then basically, Dennis, correct me, we're down to the as-built drawing.
That's
correct. It's down to the as-built drawing that are required, which basically signifies exactly how the building appears after they construct it has to be submitted.
Tomorrow morning, Mr. Pantoliano will make them an offer they can't refuse.
That's correct. He can try again, but
I'll give you a call in the morning, I think maybe we should get a legal firm involved and see if we can wrap this up.
I don't think it's a matter of the legal firm, Kevin, to push it. It's the contractors just not doing their part. If you wish to go down that avenue, by all means.
I think we need to get it right.
Dennis and I have basically started riots at meetings, finger pointing, and I think one meeting, Miss Sandy Cole had to leave because she was the only lady present. And it was probably in her best interest to leave at that meeting also.
Never gets us the paperwork. Anything else? Mr.
I
Clark?
was going to bring it up to the budget discussion, but I apologize. But just two quick clarifications, because I heard it twice about Old Bridge. Just so that the general public knows, Old Bridge has $17.1 million in new ratables. So that means they have new taxpayers that spread the tax rate amongst new people, so it lowered everybody else's taxes. They also spend another $4,311 more than we do per child, but that's another story.
Just drive down Route 9
Yeah.
on Oakwood Street and then go drive down Sables.
If we were fortunate in Cerebral to have $17.1 million in ratables, we would have probably a $700 tax decrease. So, just to put that in perspective. Also, in all my years here, there hasn't been one single board member or one single board that hasn't yelled, screamed, stomped their feet about the cost of special education. We understand that we have to do it, and it's the morally absolute right thing to do, based on federal and state mandates. But one thing that doesn't cost dollars, but is equally important, is that we're bringing children back into their hometown. Some of our kids spend 2 hours on a bus to Delaware. It's educational right, it's the morally right thing to bring these students back right in their town with their peers. So let's not lose sight about not only dollars, but what's the right thing for the child.
Anyone else? And you have anything from the legislative end?
Oh, you don't want to know.
Good. Then I'll press on.
It's out of control.
At this time, open up again for public, for any business that may come before the board. Anything whatsoever? Ms. Gill comments?
I know it's Board of Election,
It's what?
Board of Education election time, excuse me. And I came across this article in the Asbury Park Press, and it said, "Keep politics out of schools." And many times, candidates become political with lists, sending emails, and if the emails have to go through either the school server or whatever. And it said that people who use political messages to district employees should serve as a cautionary tale and to other candidates. And this judge ruled on behalf of Toms River against the Board of Education candidates. And they said the rule is simple. Don't use school property for political ends. And I know there has been a lot of candidates that have abused this and do use this. So this is just heads up, precautionary measures for candidates.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Connor. Anyone else from the public? Mr. Schreck? How are we doing, Ed?
Ed Streck, 58 Nickel Avenue, Sayreville. I have a question regarding the teachers' convention. This always, over the years, this has always bothered me. Now, they're given 2 days off, Thursday and Friday. The school is off. To
Right.
go to, now,
November, right?
are the teachers mandated to go to that convention?
No,
They're not.
no, but they are, but they have to put in a certain amount of days per contract, a calendar. So by contract, they have to put in a certain amount of days. So whether they take those days or they don't, they have to put in a minimum of 180 school days by state, 182 by contract, and 186 total, which they do workshop. So most schools do take those 2 days off.
In reality, it's like 2 vacation days. They're 2 days off which they're being paid for. They don't have to attend the convention.
They don't have to attend the convention.
How about the teachers that do attend the convention? Do
They get credit for that.
Do they get travel money or anything like that?
No.
They don't get any travel money. Absolutely sure.
No, Mrs. Bloom?
No,
Mrs. Bloom, I don't think.
no.
No, no.
No, they don't get it.
Miss Bloom might, I'm not sure. No.
One comment regarding the construction of the high school. I happened to take a ride around the school before I came into the council chambers. It looks like a war zone. I've never seen a construction site as bad looking as this. There is equipment all over the place, on roads, around against the fences. I don't understand it. There's no good housekeeping by the contractor?
It was worse. We took a lot of that stuff and put it on top of the new wing, the air conditioning units, and all that kind of stuff. We moved everything away, put it towards the fence line because of the baseball season and that type of thing. I think we have a geography problem in this. It's been a high interest item. I go by there every weekend and we point out different things. It looks like a construction site. Yeah, absolutely.
They're also into some of the messiest parts. They're excavating like crazy. They can't ship it off site yet because they're going to have to backfill. So if you look back here, there's mounds of mud that they have to take.
There are amounts of all kinds of equipment.
Yeah, and once they come down from the top after a good rain.
You wear an Air Force?
A what?
Air Force?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If your commander told you to bomb an airport, and you told him that you only had 2 aircraft, and he said, I don't care how many aircraft you have, I still want that airport bombed. It's very similar to the budget. You only have X amount of dollars to spend, and that's all you can spend. So this is my comparison, being that you're a veteran. You can't say no to the general. You have to make do with what you have. And I think...
I said no to a general once, and it wasn't good.
So he wants you to, so my comparison is that I think you should try to do what you have. And my sister Terry spoke. She's in hard times. And there's no let up. And you know what's going to happen at the Borough Hall. I own a home assessed over $143,000. I'm going to get hit pretty hard by taxes.
You know, Ed, there's never been more of a conflict within me when we deal with this budget and aware of those things and living in the town, being taxpayers, and then our responsibility to fund an adequate education. And you know, I understand what you're saying. But I've lived in many different states, and this is the only state I've lived in where they assess property taxes to pay schools. I've lived in Colorado, I've lived in Texas, and Wyoming, and South Dakota, and I can go on and on and on. That was based on a sales tax increase. So if I lived next to you and you may be retired and you're making $500,000, our house is the same, we're paying the same real estate. It's unfair. It's a regressive tax. It needs to be based on, and New Jersey just has not got that. I have conversations, had a conversation with a candidate for governor not too long ago, and I mentioned something to him a month or so ago about New Jersey has 2 bustling seaports, an international airport, and legalized gambling. Where's the money? And, you know, unless it comes from Trenton, you know, we're not doing it here. Sayville, and Governor Corsign told this to me in my face, he said, Sayville, get screwed, is what he said. And I asked him if I could quote him, and he said no. That's why we got that increase last year. Based on our income, we are overtaxed, and our property taxes are too high based on income and property taxes. And that's the bottom line. And the only way we're going to get help is going to be coming from Trenton in the way they figure out how to fund school districts. I know I have a buddy of mine who teaches in a school district a little further north here where they're paying $18,000 for a student. And I would compare any one of our students to any 20 of them, academically or another way. You know, it's just not a fair system. We're trying to do the best we can. Like I said, there's no greater turmoil in me than every time this time of year. And I'm not a naive person. I had no idea what I was getting into. And you talk about making a tough decision. You know what the tough decision is, Ed? To stand here in front of you and your sister and to say your tax is going to go up $100 because deep down inside, I know that's the right thing to do. I think that's the tougher decision than to say, hey, you guys, you don't have any tax increase, and I know I'm going to provide an adequate education based on what we do here in state. That's the hard decision.
One other question. How were all these schools left to deteriorate over the years?
Excellent question, Ed. I'm glad you asked that.
Without anybody seeing it.
Since I've been on the board, the budget's been cut $7 million. And that's another thing I don't feel, you know, another thing I have to put in perspective too, unlike the council. When we put a budget forward to you, you get to vote it down. And, you know, I wasn't born yesterday. I don't think this budget's going to fly. I understand that. And we're prepared for that. Okay? But that's the reality. You get to vote on mine. You don't get to vote on the other one. So, you know, I understand. It's a difficult decision, but it's the one I made and the one I'm here to do. And it's easy for you to look there and say, you guys can make the right decision. But we looked at everything. We've had this conversation. Mr. Clark is absolutely right. All the name calling and finger pointing, all that occurred. And this is what we came on a 9-0 decision to do. Unless all 9 of us are knuckleheads, you know, and every board behind me in the last, since I've been in this town, are knuckleheads. This clearly to me is what we need to do. Provide this education level we have to say. Man, I forget too, the mayor always likes to talk about this, that 86% of our kids, 86% of your kids, my kids, your grandchildren are participating in some after-school activity here in Salem, whether it be sports or a club. And for the money we districts, we're doing a hell of a damn good job.
It seems like there was, over the past maybe 25 years, there was no preventive maintenance going on in any of the schools.
Right, and every time the budget got cut, the first thing the council said was, patch that roof. Patch that roof, patch that roof. You know what? The patch now weighs more than the roof, and we have to do something about that. And you know, when this budget, if this budget goes down, you know what the council's going to say? Well, what are you guys doing for capital improvements? We're going to go down that road again, and it's never going to end. It's never until something collapses, and then we'll feel good. That's reality. And you know, the infrastructure in town is worse off than it is here because of that same philosophy. That's the hard decision to make. And you know, and you want to talk about Air Force sayings. You know you're over the target when you catch and play.
Well, only thing I can say about the airport, I flew in a plane, but I always jumped out of them. I never stayed.
Well, we in the Air Force, and I have this conversation with Mr. Droll all the time. We in the Air Force frown upon jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. I jumped out of a bad one, but not.
That's what they always told. That's what they always told me. Thank you.
We frown upon. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Ma'am, the lady behind me. Yes, ma'am.
I don't like to be videotaped.
Okay. That means shut it down.
My name is Elizabeth Katak. My taxes went up this year already. 3%. I'm a single parent. My job was cut. So I can't pay my utilities. I can't. You're pushing me out of my house. I can't sell the house because the market is dead. I don't know what to do. I cannot give you another $105. I'm sorry. I'm very upset.
Anyone else? If not, I'll take the motion for adjournment.
You're pushing me on the street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Question for the attorney. My retirement was from a legal office. I worked on building contracts. In fact, I handled them without any supervision. Does the time of the essence letter do any good anymore, or is that passé?
Part of
of the essence letter in terms of?
Well, in terms of, there are delays in the contract, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. It absolutely, it can be effective depending on the circumstances. I mean, certainly if the board directs our firm to send a time of the essence letter or a letter that just,
But
requires.
have you broached it to them? Have you given the opportunity to tell you the right one?
Well, we have discussions, I would say, I don't personally work in the construction component we have two guys in particular, I don't know how often you attend meetings, Todd Leader and Bill Littner from my office have met repeatedly, including an hour and a half conversation today, a conference call. These issues, as I understand it, because I do get updates obviously on a regular basis, are broached, daily, weekly. Our options are continually reassessed, especially in light of the issues, as many in this community know, with respect to this project.
Just in case anyone doesn't understand the time of the essence letter, if there's a delay, you send them a letter, you give them a certain amount of time to prepare it, or to do what they're supposed to do, and then, or you attach a penalty to it. The penalty could be take any form. So this is what I keep thinking, and then a contractor that drew the architect that drew the plans, that made us such a serious error that cost a lot of money.
Absolutely, and
has suit been started on that or anything?
We've discussed this with the board. I mean, part of the philosophy here, and board members, correct me if there's a concern, but part of the issue that we've advised is that really this project has to be finished one way or another, and we have to work with these parties from now until that time. And so the advice that we've given is just to continue to move forward in as effective and efficient way as possible, hoping that, obviously in the process, keeping good records and notes, and we're not waiving, obviously, any right to institute a suit. But instituting a suit now, A, before there's really any ability to assess the damages to the Board of Education, and B, at a time when we're still working with these contractors, is not wise in our view.
I think I've heard that, but doesn't time weaken your position?
No. Ultimately, the court's position on an issue like this would be, well, okay, Board of Education, we understand how painful this process was, but how much were you out in the end? I mean, what do you require? What do you require to be made whole? And that financial damages analysis working in a law office is a complicated one, and one that we will have to present when the time comes. Time does not weaken our argument. Of course, there's a statute of limitations. We're fully aware of that. If there's a suit to be filed, it will be filed obviously within that time, and our records that are being kept on a daily basis by the administration and the board will be used in that process.
As we go forward, we're also finding additional things which we believe are the fault of someone other than the Board of Education. So had we instituted suit a year ago, those things wouldn't have been covered, which is another reason why we're delaying that.
That does make sense, but I just don't want him to go unpunished or he's going to perform.
Mr. Streck, I think Mr. Bush does a great job of explaining things, but I'll explain this very shortly. We have professionals that failed us, and when that building is behind me and I have the keys in my hand, one of these shouldn't happen.
Thank you for that. One final thing, getting back to the budget, you seem to concentrate on the teaching staff. And how about getting money from the children's programs? I know parents will yell when you say that, but sometimes I think they're over-recreated. There's just too much for them to do, and they lose out on the things that mean a lot in life, family life. And
I'm of the belief to keep them occupied in school as long as you can on the influence of teachers and coaches. They don't go out and steal baby Jesus statues. I make jest at my point is, one's education, and at least I can vouch for it, is more than just the academic education in the classroom. It's that teamwork and that counseling and that mentoring that you get involved in these programs, and some of these programs are excellent. And it does cost money, and we've talked about that. Some districts have made it fee-based. We understand that. I think in this town, sports is a big part of what we do here. Our sports teams have been extraordinarily successful.
I follow them. I read about it all the time. I have spirit. I was very active myself in school. I read the paper. I know who's doing what. So I agree with you there. But when they're not stealing baby Jesus, what they're doing is they're graffitiing the place. Can't win.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you.
I'll take
take, if there's anybody else, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So,
All in favor? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.